Welcome, everybody, to Ada Continues. This is episode 291, the 6-year anniversary of Ada Continues. We're coming at you live right now through the power of the internet. And someone's mic is pretty loud.
It's not
But
might be mine.
probably yours.
anyways, my name is Stafa. I'm the host of the show. And the other two guys that are trying to figure out whose mic is being loud are Ali.
What's up?
And Kevin.
Hello. How's it going?
All right. I am celebrating over here the 6-year anniversary of Ada Continues. Woo, 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 woo.
Yeah, he's dancing, by the way.
Yep. We're ready.
Is it easy to see through those?
It's like wearing sunglasses makes everything darker.
Oh, okay. He makes everything look awesomer.
Yeah, it makes everything look awesomer.
There you go.
So, anyways, Ada Continues show about video games and related topics, and we're here. We're here to talk about our top 5 favorite games, as well as some news topics today. But before we get going, I want to do a quick disclaimer that all opinions expressed on the show are of our own and not of our employers, whether past, present, or future. Hashtag don't fire Stafa.
Yep.
So anyways, let's get going. And
bad you're trying to not get caught for it. Don't fire me.
Don't fire me. My opinions are of my own. They are not representative of anyone else. So my top 5 games are of mine and not my employer. So there you go. If you don't like my top 5, hashtag don't fire me.
There you go.
So let's get going and start talking about our top 5 favorite games. Figured since this is an anniversary episode, we have a fun, crazy topic. And what's crazier and more fun? Well, there's probably a lot of things. But what's crazier and more fun than our favorite games? And I also told the listeners, if you want to participate, go right in to the email that's podcast@confused.com and send us your top 5 favorite games. And tons of people didn't write in. So
Got him.
It's just gonna be us. All right. So the way how we can start the rotation, we'll rotate through our list. We'll basically have our four games are in no order, and then we'll just quickly list off some honorable mentions, and then we'll do our number 1 game. And yeah. That's the way how we'll do it. Ali, since you haven't been on the show in a little while, do you want to go first?
Sure.
All right.
One of my top 4, in no particular order, is The Last of Us.
Good choice.
That's a game.
Yeah, it is. It is a game. It's a really well made game. I just enjoyed it like considerably when it came out. I've always been not like the biggest fan of Naughty Dog. Like the Uncharted games are good, but they're not perfect. But The Last of Us,
very perfect, especially 2.
There you go. But I felt like The Last of Us was just it was just in another league. Just the writing, the atmosphere, the soundtrack, the sound design, it was all really, really well done. Yeah, I don't really have much to say. It's other than it's just like completely awesome. Just the benchmark that it set for the industry is really hard.
As fatherhood changed your view on that game?
No, because I'm not a cynical old man like Joel.
Not yet.
Not yet.
You're getting there.
A couple more years.
So that's it. I mean, like,
yeah.
was it? I mean, I'm assuming it's primarily the single player that you enjoyed.
I actually didn't touch the multiplayer. So when I say this, I mean I'm just talking about the single player alone.
Okay.
The first time I played it on like hard or something like that, and yeah, I don't know if that changed my opinion at all. I know some people said that it wasn't too difficult, but I don't know. I felt like every shot counted. Just the encounters were extremely intense. It was top tier.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Kevin, would you like to go next?
Sure. So my list is set up a little bit differently. Normally, I think I've talked about a handful of games in the past that have already come across as my top 5. And so some of those games will be repeated in this system as well. But one thing that I did was I was trying to find a way to kind of look back at some other games as well, because some of the games that I would consider my top 5 are generally a bit newer. And so I kind of tend to overlook some of the older games that I had played. So what I did was I took, so I'm 25 years old. So I basically did 5-year chunks, and I picked one game from each of those 5 years. So like my first chunk is from 1992 to 1997. Well, actually, this one is a 6-year chunk because it was a half year added onto that. So that's how my list is. I went through each 5-year, like half decades, and picked one game from those times. And actually, I kind of made it a little bit harder for myself this way because some year like 5-year chunks have a lot of really good games that came out. So I'm gonna have to make some last minute decisions because I kind of made a list of all the games that I liked from those years.
That's a pretty interesting way to do it, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to break away from the standard, like here's the 5 that I thought of, because like when I was making my list, I kind of noticed that all these games that I was listing were either from the last 10 years or newer, and I wasn't kind of thinking about beyond that.
Yeah, that's really easy to influence like your decision, like just living in the moment. You kind of sometimes you'll forget older things, or if you start doing like a retro binge, you'll start remembering older games. So I tried to go a little bit back, but I didn't go too far back. I just went to like kind of 2000s.
Yeah, like I thought about like whether I'm just focusing on the newer games too much or not, and so I was also trying to think, okay, what are some games from like the Atari, the NES, the SNES era that I want to throw into this list, and like while there are games that I find a lot of childhood memories in those games, that are close to me. I just ultimately didn't add those games into my list because I feel like they're not. I don't know. They're just not my favorites anymore. Like I feel like games have progressively gotten better.
Yep. And I think some of the games that I will mention will also not be like if I were just doing a pure top 5 list, these games that I'm going to mention may not have made that list, but kind of forcing myself to look at different time periods and just pick one game from each of those. So 1992 to 1997, I think my top pick is going to have to be Wolfenstein 3D. Even though there were a ton of other games like System Shock and Diablo that I liked.
Also, technically, that game was 2D, so.
Well, yeah. But
it had a 3D appearance.
Yeah, it was clever programming to make a 2D game appear 3D. But yeah, so this one was a game that I played a lot during my childhood. I think I've told this story before, but my dad, back in the day, I mean, he still does. He works at IPY as a software engineer for the IT department, and he often had to work long hours after I had gotten off school, and my mom was also in school at the time. So I kind of ended up staying with my dad at his office almost every day after school for several years. And the thing that I would do is I'd go there, finish up my homework if I had any, which didn't have much back then. But then I would play Wolf 3D on on one of his spare computers in his office, and it's kind of been something that my dad also had played a lot of when he had first moved to America. He had tried exploring with lots of different entertainment mediums to get accustomed to learning the English language because he's from India, and so he listened to a lot of modern music of that time, and he was watching a lot of movies and playing a lot of games. And he picked up Wolf 3D, and that kind of was the connection between the games that he played and the games that I started playing. And so he always had Wolf 3D installed on any of the computers that he was working with, just because it was something that he'd go back to. And so that was the one game that I also played a lot of. I mean, I think I've played the same 10 chapters. I've lost count how many times I've gone through that game. But yeah, it was really cool just kind of playing Wolf 3D, and also just with the recent release of the New Order, kind of how you can go back into the old levels if you find the hidden rooms. So I thought that was a really cool homage to such a great game.
Yeah, that was great.
Yep.
But yeah, good pick. All right, moving on to my first pick. Did you say something, Ali?
I like the story behind the pick too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, your mic went down for a second, Ali. But anyways, yeah. So first pick on my list, that the top 5 through 2 that isn't in any order, is Chex Quest, because it's better than Wolf. No, I'm messing. So I have Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay. This
The darkness. I love it.
The darkness. So this game is like, came out on Xbox. It's a game that I totally expected to be terrible. I remember seeing it on store shelves when it first came out, and I pointed and laughed at it. I was like, this has to be bad. And it's a game that I'm pretty sure a lot of people felt the exact same way and did not even give it a try. But due to seeing reviews, at the time I used to frequent GameSpot and just check out reviews for all sorts of games. So due to seeing reviews that the game is pretty good, I'm like, unbelievable, I'll have to check it out. And the game is actually great. This is one of the few games that I've played through the campaign multiple times. Usually when I beat a game, especially as an adult, I would no longer play the game any longer. I'm like, okay, I beat it, I'm done, time to move on to the next game. The only time that I used to play a game multiply was when I was a kid. That was because I had only so many games available to me. But as an adult, I got so many games, and with Chronicles of Riddick, I beat it and I played it multiple times. I think I beat it maybe 5 or 6 times, and I've even beat it on the hardest difficulty, which I never do for games. So since I never do that for games, and I did it for this one, I have to put this on my top 5 list. It's just a really great campaign. it's like not quite as RPG as Deus Ex, because there's really no RPG system, but like there's a lot of exploration and talking with people and getting quests, and just it's just really great atmosphere, great gameplay.
Graphics were also top notch at the time.
Yes,
Like the use of shaders and stuff like that on Xbox was just like I remember looking at that and I was like, man, this looks awesome.
it was the first game with bit mapping, um, because it came out before Doom 3.
Doom 3, yeah.
Yeah,
It also
like
had what's it called? A deferred rendering engine for dynamic shadows. Like
yeah,
because the game had a lot of spotlights and stuff like that, so you'd see these like dynamic shadows as opposed to just you know baked in ones that games have been using for a long time. So it just was technically like really awesome.
yeah. I mean,
As
it did
as in addition to all the other awesome things it did.
it did things better than like other games that were like best known for its genre. Like for example, Splinter Cell at the time was pretty much like the peak of uh stealth games with like the shadow mechanics and everything. And I think Riddick did it even better. Because it didn't like at the time Splinter Cell had like this like meter on the screen telling you like how much shadow you're in, and Riddick had like no HUD. It had
Yeah,
no
it
heads up
just
display on the screen,
it
and
just changed the color of the screen when you like were hidden to like
yeah,
that bluish tint.
yeah, and I mean like it was just a really fun game. At times the game would completely change genres, like it would turn into like a horror game all of a sudden, um, and just every time you progress from one section of the prison to another, it was like everything changes. Everything that you knew from the previous section of the prison completely changed. Until like the very end, where it's like almost like Portal, where you're like in this super clean facility, and um, just the pacing is also really good. I mean, uh, it has like a great climax where you have a very difficult portion of the game, and then all of a sudden you have like this insane power trip where you're just mowing down everybody. Um, just overall great game. The sequel, Assault on Dark Athena, is also very good. But I like Escape from Butcher Bay even more, and it's just a shame that they never concluded that story. Like they end Assault on Dark Athena with kind of a cliffhanger. Like there's definitely more to the story, um, and they don't conclude it because the games just didn't sell well, which
Yeah.
is a shame. So, but yeah, Escape from Butcher Bay definitely has to be on my list. Ali.
Okay. Next on my list, I'm gonna go with World of Warcraft. I don't think WoW has been on my list before, but I've been thinking about it recently. Just I spent a whole year on that game, and I had a blast with it. Just the moments of whether it was just like going through the different instances or going through a raid or going through like the PvP sections, it was just really fun. I spent a lot of times with a lot of friends just playing this game. I was in high school at the time, um, and we were just having a blast. I mean, just so many antics. And of course, it's a game about loot and grinding and RPGs, and so that's my type of game as well. Just kind of going through that loop. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. I know other people have even more time and probably better experiences than I have, because like some people played it for 5+ years or something like that. But I just know
For
that
like 10 plus years.
yeah, 10+years, yeah. But it just I think yeah, it was kind of like a highlight of probably my better high school years. So just kind of associating, those fun times I've had with friends with the game. I think that certainly helped my opinion on it. And I
Yeah.
mean, to be honest, it's a well crafted MMO. It's the longest running MMO for a
A
reason.
well Warcrafted MMO.
No.
Heyo.
Like where so where did you leave off? Like what was the last expansion?
Wrath of the Lich King.
Which many people will say that's like the best one.
I mean, that's yeah. I left after that. Like,
Yeah.
what? Oh, I forget what the next one was.
Cataclysm.
No, that's. I tried to find that video recently for some unrelated reason, but anyway, I digress. Yeah, Wrath of the Lich King was um last one I played. I think playing through a lot of Burning Crusades was just getting all the different flying mounts, and I mean, to be honest, they had awesome raids in Burning Crusades. I think that was an amazing expansion. So um, it was just a really well Warcrafted game.
Oh, you know, uh, I mean, I never like played World of Warcraft. Well, I played a little bit, but I haven't really gotten into World of Warcraft, um, and or Warcraft. But from what I understand at this point, the entire Warcraft lore, like all of the Warcraft series, has more story at this point than like all of Tolkien's, Lord of the Rings universe at this point.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got so much story. I can't keep up with any of it. I mean, they've added so much stuff, especially since I left. It's just, to be honest, I really didn't play the game for the story. I mean, there were some things that I found interesting, but most of it I just kind of skipped.
Okay, moving on. Or you got anything else you want to add on that game?
Nope.
All right, Kevin.
All right. The next chunk of time, 1998 to 2002. This one was
Uh-oh.
this one was very
Uh-oh.
difficult because
Good
um,
years.
yeah, it was the year chunk basically that Morrowind and Diablo 2 and Deus Ex and Baldur's Gate all got released. And those are all games that I regard very highly.
Some people would say that time period's like the peak of gaming.
Yeah.
Golden Age.
Yo.
Yeah. Yep. So this is a very tough choice, but I think I'm gonna have to pick. I know I've talked a lot about Morrowind, but I'm gonna have to go with Deus Ex. I think the Deus Ex kind of set a precedent for what storytelling in games can be. And this was also around the time of some other, System Shock had come out not too long before that, and Half-Life. So I mean, it was that time when stories were really becoming a critical part of games, narrative, and not just focusing on the gameplay. And this was really a time when games as a storytelling medium was becoming more seriously considered.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Deus Ex is one of the games from that time that I think deserves a lot of recognition just because of what it had done for it kind of advanced storytelling and the cyberpunk genre, and it leaped it forward. And it's to the point where we've got sequels to these days. Mankind Divided and Human Revolution were also fairly well received games. But Yeah, I introduced my brother to Deus Ex of several years ago, and I think Deus Ex is probably his favorite game of all time. But yeah, and the story is really good, and I've always been a fan of the cyberpunk genre and like the corporate espionage type of stories, and I think Deus Ex does a really good job with it. You kind of travel throughout the world in this game, and they're interacting with different secret organizations, and like the Illuminati and some other fictional ones. But the thing is that a lot of these conspiracy theories that they had put into Deus Ex are kind of rooted in conspiracy theories that are real. I mean, not real, but I mean like that we have in existence. They weren't just all made up for the game. So it's really cool that they kind of took some of those ideas and expanded on them and made huge connections between all of them. And I think I will say that it hasn't really lived up to, it hasn't aged very well in terms of the gameplay. There's a lot of things that the game has done that games in general have improved upon, especially in the gameplay mechanics.
Like controls. The controls on that game are bad.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely for sure. Like especially like they gave you a lot of control, but there were some things that just hadn't been standardized back then until recently, or more recently, and so the game hasn't aged very well. But I still think that in regards to its storytelling and its character development, it's still one of the best. And if there is ever a chance that someone or the company that actually does a remake of this game, I'd definitely be interested in playing that with more modern controls and modern graphics. I think that would be, because I know that one company, Night Dive Studios, is rebooting the original System Shock, which I am looking forward to and backed on Kickstarter. But having a remake of the original Deus Ex would also be pretty amazing, I think.
It was a few weeks ago. I had one of my coworkers on the show, Chris, and we talked about games that we would like to see remade, because a lot of remakes are coming out recently. And one game that was on my list was the original Deus Ex, because I tried playing through it late to the party, and I'm like, this is really cool, but I can't stand the controls. So like 14.
It's really, really hard going back to that.
14 hours in, I had to give up.
One thing,
close to it, I think.
Yeah. One thing I missed it, but you didn't mention like the extreme flexibility of all the missions. Just like you could basically go, like you could do it any way you want, stealth, you could do whatever, like brute force. There's so much granularity. And the thing is, that
force
game,
with the limit of the bad controls.
Yes, there you go. But like the game, it's at least I don't recall you being able to basically level up all of your abilities. So you had to spec your person into a specific way, and you had to play it that way, basically. Of course, you got better in those certain aspects as you got, progress through the game, but I think it's awesome that they thought of like basically every single scenario for every single mission, and it works extremely well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did completely forget to talk about the flexibility. And yeah, a lot of games recently have been taking that approach as well. I mean, one of the big selling points for Deus Ex Human Revolution and Mankind Divided were the flexibility, but I don't think that they had done it as robust as the original Deus Ex had, because the way that Human Revolution and Mankind Divided approached the flexibility is that they kind of have specific categories. Like, they say you can go through it like, stealth, you can brute force it, or they had like the three main ways you could complete the game, and I don't remember the exact wording that they used for those, but they kind of categorized the entire game to fit within one of those three play styles. But the way Deus Ex had done it is they'd never advertised the idea that it was a specific way or a specific type of gameplay. So you could kind of mix and match. You built your own gameplay through the leveling of your skills and abilities. And like you mentioned, you don't have the ability to get all of those skills, and so you really had to plan ahead. And there were consequences for not planning properly and assigning points properly. I mean, it wasn't really
Consequences will never be the same.
Yeah, I mean, it was like oh, you've put points into this, and now you can't finish the game. You kind of had to you could make whatever build you wanted, but they were all viable in some way. But there were obviously things that would help you in certain situations more so than others. But it was up to you to make the decision to, let's say, put your points into the hacking terminals and sneaking around. But if you wanted to be like a stealth assassin, you could easily put in your points into certain weapon types like snipers, and still put all your points into hacking and lockpicking. They kind of can do the same in the recent Deus Ex games too. But I think there were more paths that you could take. You didn't have to go through the same rooms. And I think that's one thing that defines Deus Ex, the original game, from the newer ones, is the level design. They really thought about more ways to reach the same area, as opposed to, because I think like in Human Revolution, and Mankind Divided, you kind of had the option to go through the vents, or you could sneak around in the rooms. But I don't think they added very many like various paths to get to the same place as the original game had. But yeah, I think the original is definitely, in terms of level design and story and characters, it definitely holds up as one of the best games in that genre, I think.
I wish I played the game earlier.
You should have.
Yeah.
If only I knew about this game. I remember like when I first heard of the game, it was like the Xbox and PS1, PS2 versions of the game, and apparently those are like busted in comparison.
Yeah. Did you not play that game around then, or when did you try to play it?
Like I didn't hear about it until after I played Chronicles of Riddick.
Oh.
Because I was looking in, I was reading like an FAQ on it. Yeah, this is when like game FAQs was bigger. But I was reading FAQ, and like this person was saying, like part of it, like they listed games that are similar, and like there's really no game that's like this, but here's some games that have like similar mechanics and similar themes. And like one of them, the games that they listed was Deus Ex. And that's when I first heard of Deus Ex. So by the time I played Chronicles of Riddick, which is a game that came out in like I don't know, like 05, 04 or 05, that's when I heard of Deus Ex, which I think Deus Ex came out in like 2000.
Yep. Yeah, it was 2000.
Yeah, and like Riddick plays so well, and Deus Ex has very bad controls.
Yeah, I tried playing it again recently. Well, recently, like 3 or 4 years ago. But it's definitely something that you have to get used to. And I think I think you had gotten pretty far into the game, like you said, 14 hours in, and I think the game is only like 20, 25 hours. So I mean, you were more than halfway through, I think. But yeah, there have been a lot of improvements and polish. I mean, just there is a mod also that you can get that makes some improvements to at least the visuals. It's like the New Vision mod, but I don't think it has very many gameplay enhancements. But
yeah, I have like the Revision mod installed.
Yeah,
like Deus Ex Revision, but I don't know. I never booted it up and played it.
If you ever get the chance to, I definitely recommend getting through it.
All right. Yeah, moving on.
Sure.
All right. So next game I want to talk about is what I believe to be the best game on the PS2. Not Shadow of the Colossus. It's God of War 2.
Yep, that's also a very excellent game.
I uh I remember being extremely hyped for this game because I loved the first one. Um and uh at the time I was working at Walmart and I hated my life and I was ready for this to be the game to like just engulf me so much that I would like not go to work and I just play this game all day and then get fired because I didn't want to be at Walmart any longer. It didn't happen. I still went to work, but I was ready for this to do this to me. Maybe a lot of my love for this game also is linked with my hatred with my life at that point, but I really had a lot of fun with this game. It's like everything that the first game did well, and then some. It was an even longer game. It had like amazing boss fights. I mean, the intro level itself. I remember there was like this Penny Arcade comic, like just going in description of how insane it was, and they're like, and that was only the intro level. You know, like they're like they thought that they were done with the game. Uh, so it's just such a well crafted game, and it ran really well. Also, unlike Shadow of the Colossus, which like ran like 2 frames per second. Pretty sure that's accurate.
Slide.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was basically PowerPoint. But God of War 2, it ran pretty well for a PS2 game. It was super fun. I can't think of any negative things to say about the game. Just like it was, I think personally, I think the series peaked with God of War 2. God of War 3 was also really good, but I don't know. I wasn't really a big fan of the ending.
Had enough of Kratos by 3, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think God of War 2 is just amazing and similar to Chronicles of Riddick. I went back and played this at least 3 times. I beat it, multiple times. Just going through and trying to find the hidden chests that I didn't find previously.
Mm-hmm.
And like doing New Game Plus, just overall really fun, and a lot of uh, what they call character action games, or the hack and slash games, are they basically have used God of War as the blueprint. Which, I mean, God of War kind of basically used like Devil May Cry as a blueprint. It used basically like a mix between Devil May Cry for the combat and Zelda for like the exploration and puzzles, and did its own thing. And then like every other character action game since then has basically like pointed at God of War and said, let's do that. So, I mean, at this point, like it's nothing, or definitely nothing original at all, but it did what it did very well. So, moving on,
Yeah.
Ali.
Okay. My next one is Gran Turismo 4. I spent hundreds of hours on that game. One of my buddies, Tyler, and I, he just like in his basement, he had this like TV set up with a PS2. I mean, he had like N64 and other stuff hooked up to it as well. But we'd go there just like after school and just play Gran Turismo just for like all day, just working through the campaign. Like I know Gran Turismo 4 is not considered the best out of the series. Some people say it's 3 because it was a lot more focused.
That's the movie with Clint Eastwood, right?
Yes, that's the one with Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, and he's in like the thugs mess with him at his house.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Gran Torino 4.
Yep. So anyway, like just it's another one of those. I mean, the thing that I've always liked about Gran Turismo is that it is a racing game that is also an RPG. You know, it's got a campaign mode where you start off with a low-end car, you grind your way to, get enough money to upgrade that car, and then potentially get a new car and then upgrade that, and it's just like it's an RPG and collectathon, and we both liked that, and we spent literally hundreds of hours just like every day, just like, hey, you want to come over? Sure. And we would just play that game. So I yep, nice glasses, Staffa. I think I'm not sure what the new Gran Turismo is going to be like. I don't think it's going to be like this, and it kind of bums me because that's what I've always wanted. So I don't know. I just really enjoyed Gran Turismo 4. I think the PS2 Gran Turismo games are considered like the pinnacle, like the high point for that series. So I'm sure someone else has this on this list. Not someone here, but someone else in general.
Yeah, I don't think
someone in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually ever really played any of the Gran Turismo games, which I'm kind of sad about because I've always heard some good things about them, and I also really enjoy racing games. But I think the equivalent racing game for me would have to probably be like Midnight Club 3. I think I definitely put a lot of hours into that one as well, but definitely not nearly as focused or as highly regarded as the Gran Turismo games.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I can move on to my game. This one is going to be also a difficult choice because this is 2003 to 2007. This was the year that, like, the years that KOTOR, Oblivion, BioShock, Mass Effect, and the first God of War game actually had come out. But I mean, the obvious answer here for me is probably going to be BioShock. I've mentioned this game plenty of times. It kind of on the same lines as Deus Ex and the original System Shock and other games like it. It's, in my opinion, like it's probably, when it comes to just pure storytelling, I think it's my favorite game of all time.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
Would you kindly place this game on your list? And would you kindly see the voice acting?
Yeah. So it is already on my list. But yeah, I really do love BioShock, and I've said many words about the series in general.
Several insane words about the series. You could see voice acting.
Yeah. Well, I think actually, I think BioShock Infinite, I think, had better voice acting, but I think as an overall game, I think BioShock was better. But actually, all three games kind of have their points that make them great. I mean, for BioShock, the first one, it was definitely the story and the characters for me that really made that game something memorable. The second game, I think, had the best combat mechanics out of all three of them. They really improved the idea of being able to use your plasmids and weapons at the same time without having to switch between them. So it made combat more fluid, and they had, I think, better weapon choices for certain situations in that one. And then I think BioShock Infinite kind of just had a really good voice acting, really good characters. And I think all three of them, if I could like take those parts of all three of them, put them all together into one game, that would make the ultimate BioShock game. But I think BioShock, the first one, definitely is probably my favorite out of all three of them, just because of the storytelling and the setting especially, and it kind of created this whole new world that had never really been explored very much before. I mean, I don't think there have been very many, even up until now, there really haven't been many underwater.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Fair enough. But I mean, just the idea that you have the city underwater. There have been some games that kind of took that idea since then. Which one was the Soma was a recent game that I also really liked, which dealt with an underwater city. But yeah, not very many games kind of take the underwater approach, and I think this one did an excellent job with that.
So I'm not like, I don't know, I wouldn't consider myself a fan of BioShock. Like I don't have like the same amount of love as you do, Kevin, but one thing that I'll admit that they did an excellent job with in those games. Well, I don't know about the second one because I didn't play that one, but I played the first and the third. They have great atmosphere. Like they do a wonderful job just setting the tone, just like especially the very first level. I mean the introduction section of the first game where you're walking around, it's dark, and you see like the Big Daddy like drill a dude into the glass.
Yeah.
It just really does a good job setting the tone. And like while you're walking around, you can tell that there used to be life in this area, but now there isn't. Like what happened here? And you're like getting you're putting together the pieces of the puzzle, and you see those like ghost visions, which that eventually gets explained. But yeah, like they do an excellent job with atmosphere and setting the tone.
Yeah, and I know I recommended playing Deus Ex earlier if you get the chance to, but if you're going to play any game that I would recommend, I would say BioShock 2 is the one. From an overall game design standpoint, I probably would think that BioShock 2 is the far superior game just because it's more polished than the first BioShock. But personally, I liked BioShock 1 better just because of its story and that introduction. Like the whole setting was new, and I think that had a bigger impact just because it was something that had never been done before, and it was completely unique.
I played Minerva's Den from BioShock 2.
Okay, yeah, Minerva's Den was a really good DLC. I like that one a lot.
Does that count?
Not really. I think you should play the base game.
Okay.
That's it. If you want to move on.
All right. Looks like it's my turn, right?
It is.
Yeah, it's my turn. So next game I want to talk about on my list. When was it? So I was like, I think I was in early. No, I was not. I was in junior high school when this game came out. Metal Gear Solid, and yeah, this was one of the first games I played. Probably the first game I played in which it felt very cinematic. I mean, like I remember playing games before that, like Final Fantasy VII, where there's like these amazing cutscenes, but like all those cutscenes always felt like they didn't feel like they were as integrated into the game as Metal Gear Solid did, because of the fact like
too, just like there's never like any voice or anything involved.
Yeah, there's no voice, and also the fact that like the graphics significantly change multiple times within the game. Like the world graphics look different from the battle graphics, which look different from the cinematics, which like
they're all different. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Metal Gear Solid, they were all. I mean, it was all in engine, so.
Yeah, and like I remember just falling in love with the characters. Like all of the boss characters were just super cool. like all of them had their own unique personality, and like the fact that there was another dude that could have been a boss, but he died in the very beginning of the game. Like, like just that blew my mind as well. Like after thinking about it, I was like, whoa, this guy could have been a boss, but he died in the very beginning. What if he didn't die? He would have been a boss.
Yeah.
Like just there's I mean, like if there's one word I can use to summarize Metal Gear Solid, and that would be character. Like they have so much great character, like within like all the bosses. Um the world itself had a lot of character. It was
The
just
gameplay had character.
yeah, gameplay had character.
Like it wasn't just a stealth, based game, which at the time, just like the idea of like knocking on a wall or like having like people's like, huh, whose footprints are these or whatever. It's like, whoa, it was awesome.
And it was also like fun to just goof around in that game too, because I remember like even our older brother who doesn't even play video games that much, like he was really like into Metal Gear as well, and just goofing around, like kind of exploring the AI, like running in circles with and making footprints, and then watching the AI follow the footprints exactly. And then when they get to the circles, like
yeah.
yeah, like it was just such a fun game, great character, great story. And at the time I knocked it down a few pegs at the time for being a short game, but because at back then we expect like 30 40 hours of a game, and that was like 7 hour long game if you skip the cutscenes. So I knocked it down a few pegs back then, but today's standards, that's normal. Having like a 7 hour campaign or whatever. But just I had so much fun with this game. I just fell in love with all the different characters in the game, and I feel like Metal Gear Solid is one of the games that has truly inspired me to get into the game industry. I when I wasn't playing Metal Gear Solid, I would daydream about like coming up with characters that are just as cool and putting them into like cool situations where you're battling with them and stuff like that. So it is one of those games that has inspired me to try to pursue a career in the game industry. And yeah, I just
I thought about putting that game on my list, but I figured someone else would, so I didn't.
Yeah, it's a wonderful game. Yeah, I love it. Definitely in my top 5.
Okay, I'll go next.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Jet Set Radio Future.
I never actually played that one.
It's awesome.
You like it more than Jet Set Radio Past?
I didn't like Jet Set Radio Past. Jet Set Radio Past, or Jet Set Radio, or Jet Grand Radio.
What about Jet Set Radio Present?
No, shut up, Staffa. The thing is, Jet Set Radio and Jet Set Radio Future are two very different games. I mean, the characters, the setting, and most of the soundtrack are very much the same. But Jet Set Radio is an arcade score attack game. Jet Set Radio Future is like, I don't know, like a platformer, like open world type. I don't know what to describe it as. It was really awesome though. Just what would you describe it as, Staffa?
I didn't play it myself. I just remember watching you play it, and I remember it looked really cool graphically. I think it's well, the first one, Jet Grind Radio, is the first console game with cell
Cell
shading.
shading, yeah.
And like I just remember you watching you play a lot of Jet Set Radio Future, and it looked very fast. Which is like the opposite of Jet Grind Radio, which is a very slow game, mainly because of the fact that they added the ability to speed up while you're doing tricks as
Yep.
you're grinding.
Yep.
And they that made a huge difference, because I tried playing Jet Grind Radio. I mean, that game has been re-released multiple times within the past few years, and I tried playing it, and I'm like, whoa, this is nowhere near as fast as Jet Set Radio Future, which I've watched you, Ali, play it.
Yeah, Jet Grind Radio. It feels sluggish when you try
Yeah.
to go back to it. I mean, you haven't even played Jet Set Radio Future, but just Jet Future was. I think the polish on that game was much higher, because they basically took the original game and fleshed it out into a full single player game. I mean, there's a multiplayer mode, it's like race mode, whatever type thing, other stuff. But I spent so many hours on that game. I'm pretty sure I attempted to 100% it. I don't know if I did or not. I don't recall. But just everything about that game just was awesome. Just the art style, just the I think the I'm going to use this word, the attitude at the time was just right. Just for that time period. Just the music is completely memorable. Like, in my head, I could quote these songs or these rhythms like just by memory. And
It was a very stylish game.
It was very, very stylish. It's just I don't think anything really comes close to it in style. Just in terms of how everything looked, you sprayed graffiti, there's a graffiti editor, it's just all sorts of stuff. I don't know, man. The story was kind of hokey, but it worked. Like, it fit within the universe of these like rivaling,
I mean, like the game itself looked like a living graffiti art.
Yeah,
I mean, like it took graffiti culture and like built this world based around it, and like the music complements it really well.
It does.
And yeah,
it's very eccentric in that sense of just like this unusual mix mash of styles thrown together in a game, because you have these rivaling groups that have their own different styles, and not just what they dress, but like how their tags look and stuff like that. The platforming and the world was really well crafted as well. Just the game had a sense of verticality to it that many games, if not most games today, still don't have. And it just kind of lends the sense that you have this like these people on these futuristic skates that could wall ride and go up these electrical poles and all sorts of stuff like that. And just there were so many, I don't know, it's hard to put it into words because it's just so out there. Just how awesome that game looked and sounded and felt and made you feel. It was really relaxing too. Yes, there are like kind of more difficult, challenging areas, but because of this like very positive energy that this kind of game exudes, it just feels great the whole time.
Like another thing that the game did differently, other than like adding the boosts within your grinding, compared to the first game, was that it streamlined the graffiti mechanic so that you like instantly spray the graffiti, rather than in the first game, when you add graffiti, you go into like this slow time event where like it shows you a direction to emulate with your analog stick. It would be like, half circle upwards, half circle down, quarter circle, like, or straight line this way.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, at the time, one of my friends was talking about, like, before I even played the game, he was talking about how it was better in the first game because it made you feel like you were drawing the graffiti yourself. But after I played it myself, I'm like, this is really slow. It doesn't really feel like you're drawing the graffiti yourself, and it just takes you out of the rest of the game. While in Jet Set Radio Future, you instantly spray your graffiti without taking you out of the game. And I feel like that was a really important change, between the first and second game, because of the fact that it's not taking you out of the moment. You're still just zooming around, and you're just spraying the graffiti as quickly as possible.
There were a couple larger tags and some of the areas that required that mini game, but for the most part, everything else was replaced with that just quick spray. So they still had some of that in there, but the core like mechanic of that being on every spray paint tag was removed in the second one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
love the game. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't play the game, but I watched you play it, and it looked really cool. And like, this is back when Sega was making fast games. But yeah, Kevin,
All right. Let's see.
you're looking at 2004 through 2026.
Yeah, 2008 to 2012, another difficult year because that was another good time in games, I think. We had games like Fallout 3, Dragon Age Origins, Mass Effect 2, Assassin's Creed 2, Red Dead Redemption. This is a hard list. I think I'm going to go ahead and pick Assassin's Creed 2. Back
before Assassin's Creed went down the toilet.
Before the times when Ubisoft pulled the Ubisoft and made the Assassin's Creed games kind of pointless. Sorry?
I'm just thinking of that game, and that game started off with you being born.
Yeah, I did.
It was like press X to be born or something like that.
I think back then Ubisoft actually had done a really good job with their storytelling. Just everything about Assassin's Creed 2. I mean, I also was a huge fan of the first Assassin's Creed, and I understand that people had issues with it being repetitive. But I think it was very strong. I mean, in terms of story, and I know I've kind of mentioned that a lot. I mean, that's something that I personally regard highly in games is storytelling. And but then, just they took everything that was good about Assassin's Creed 1 and made it better in Assassin's Creed 2, and then just fixed all the issues that Assassin's Creed 1 had. And the game was revolutionary, I think, for its time. It kind of set that whole there had been open world games before that, but it kind of took the Grand Theft Auto style open world, but made it more interactive. Like, there were more things that you could do in the world itself, as opposed to just being able to access the city at a high level. You can kind of actually, there were things to do in the city, in the cities, in the areas that they've built. And I think the whole story arc for Ezio is excellent. So that that includes Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations. And I don't think Ubisoft has come up to that same level of standard as they had back then.
Yeah,
I think those three games were kind of the peak of Ubisoft open world design. And
so you like 2 more than Brotherhood?
I
think we've had this discussion before. and like we never agree which one's better. Like
the issue that I have, I can never remember which one is which because they were all like the same character and they kind of had like a flowing story, so it felt like all one big game. So I kind of consider 2 Brotherhood and Revelations to be one package. It's kind of like
not me. For me, like I clearly know which one's Revelations, and that's the one that it's not as good as the previous 2.
Yeah, I don't know. In my mind, like
plus your old Ezio in that game.
I don't know. I think that they kind of still worked all together as one piece, and I kind of look at those 3 games in the same way that I look at Half-Life 2, Episode 1, and Episode 2. I mean, like they kind of are. It's in my opinion one set piece design. It's like one thing that kind of is cohesive with each other, and they just broke it up for whatever reason. But I mean, in this case, I mean the worlds that they design, and even to this day, I still think Ubisoft does a good job with world building.
Mm-hmm.
Just think that they've lost their sights on storytelling and character development, and they've really just kind of pushed more for building the huge cinematic universe without really caring much about the nuances that makes the game interesting and fun to play and keeps people drawn in. But I mean, those worlds, they provided a lot to explore, and I especially loved all of the temple puzzles that you had to go through.
Yeah,
I think were also really
those had the best platforming elements of the game.
Yeah, and I usually don't play very many platformers, but I think if there were more platformers like those challenge temples, then I definitely would be playing those more often.
At a certain point, they took those out of Assassin's Creed, and I was like, those are the best parts of the game.
Yeah, I think actually Revelations was the first one that stopped doing it. So they only had it, I think, in 2 and Brotherhood, and then they stopped doing it in Revelations.
Yeah.
But
Assassin's Creed 2, I feel like had the best story out of the Ezio trilogy. It was like, it was about his family dying and his revenge story. But then I feel like Brotherhood had better gameplay because that's when they introduced, the whole assassin recruitment mechanics, which I feel like added a lot to it.
Yeah, that was definitely a really cool aspect of those games. And I mean, it's kind of sad that Ubisoft pushed for annual releases as opposed to just making the games good and releasing them when they're ready to be released, because it really shows that they've lost their the time and care that it takes to make a good story, because a lot of the newer games, they kind of just rush through a very simple aspect of the Templar and Assassin War, but Assassin's Creed 2 delved really deeply into all of that. And I think one of the biggest aspects about the Ezio story arc is that you were learning about all of these things at the same time that Ezio was learning about them. So you built this kind of connection with the whole background story along with Ezio. And ever since then, they kind of just they didn't put as much focus on the actual story elements, and they just kind of put more focus on improving gameplay, which I think gameplay has definitely gotten better for the most part. I mean, other than some of the buggy issues, but it's very clear that they haven't put the same level of attention to the story development and characters since the Ezio story.
Yeah. Ubisoft has definitely lost their way, except for the one guy who cried because he's working on Mario.
Oh,
he's fine as long as he doesn't start annualizing Mario and Rabbids.
Mario Rabbids 2 soon next year.
Fun fact: I've never played an Assassin's Creed for more than a couple hours.
Yeah. Well, I can understand it's not everyone's favorite gameplay style or type of genre, but I definitely recommend getting through the Ezio storyline, because I think that kind of tells everything that you need to know about the whole background between the assassins and the Templars.
Yeah, just come up with your own ending in your head, because otherwise it's not going to be an actual ending.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that video games, society itself will probably end before the story of Assassin's Creed ends.
Yep.
But yeah, move on.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. So we're on our fourth one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was really tough, between like this and the next one being my number one. But I'm gonna place this one as not my number one. Team Fortress 2. It was very close to being number one, but like, for the fact that it has left my life with a sour taste, that's why.
That's why I left mine off my list in general.
Yeah, like I spent hundreds of hours. I mean, I've clocked thousands of hours with Team Fortress 2, but a lot of it's also me.
Sitting in the main menu, stepping away.
No, me like sitting in a server,
Idling.
idling for hats. So I don't know what the accurate number is, but at least hundreds of hours playing this game, especially with the FUG community. Just really fun, coming back home from whatever school or whatever, and you know meeting back with this community of friends, playing we're not taking it too competitively. I mean, yeah, we're trying to win, but at the same time, just just basically hanging with friends, playing, and I've had so much fun playing Team Fortress 2. Especially like it got me to the point where I was looking up videos of other people playing the game, just so I can like get some tips on how to improve. And sometimes I'd watch a video like, oh, I didn't realize you can do this thing on this map. There's like kind of an exploit, but regardless, I mean, I got really into Team Fortress 2, and Team Fortress 2 like had a lot of depth to it as well. So you're not gonna pick up everything if you just play the game without looking up stuff or getting help from other people. So it was I my passion for it made me more competitive to improve. Unfortunately, the game got a bit ridiculous with so many balance changes, and like when Valve is similar with like Blizzard when Blizzard nerfs thing, or when they balance things, they nerf things to hell. And that's what Valve did a lot of times too. They're like, oh, this thing's too powerful. Now it's completely useless. Thank you, Valve.
Yeah.
and like they started adding so many weapons. I mean, it wasn't the hats that killed it for me, because a lot of people are like, oh, I stopped playing because the hats. No, it wasn't the hats that killed it for me. It was they just kept on adding so many weapons and items that I felt were clearly not even play tested. It's like, how did this get past quality assurance? This thing is so busted. It's clearly 100% better than like the basic weapon. And
I think some of the I think when it really started going downhill is, I think, around the Pyro and then the Spy update.
yeah, like
they were cranking weapons out that weren't balanced with all the rest of the stuff that were currently out, because like the best way to balance a game is to have everything sort of like a paper rock scissors, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but with every item that you introduce into that system, it creates a new permutation of what has to work with what and what balances what.
Yeah.
And I feel like they got to a point where they just added so much stuff, it's impossible to balance it all.
Yeah.
It's kind of like League of Legends. They've got like 1,000 heroes or something. They're not 1,000, but like 100 some heroes or something like that. And it's some of them are not as good as other ones because I mean you can't balance around that many different items or heroes or whatever you want to compare. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, like the for when they introduce a new item and it has like some aspects that are better than the other weapons, there also needs to be aspects that's worse to keep it balanced. I mean, like I remember they added this spicicle. It's like an icicle for the spy, and it basically worked exactly like the spy's knife, except it had the added benefit of like I can't remember what it was. It was basically um if I think it was if the pyro sets you on fire, then the icicle melts, and then you're no longer on fire or something like that.
So
It was
what it did was that the instead of catching you on fire,
yeah,
you lost your knife because it
for like a
melted.
few seconds.
Yeah, it would go on a cooldown. I don't remember what the
Yeah,
cooldown was.
and it was like there was really no downside to it. It was a pure benefit because the pyro is the class that counters spies, and now you basically have a weapon that counters the pyro. So you have an anti pyro spy, which it was just it was busted.
It
There's
says it regenerates in 15 seconds and by picking up ammo. So picking up ammo would regenerate that time faster. So
yeah.
if you had a on hit fireproof for 1 second and after burn immunity for 10 seconds. Yeah, so it just provided a strong counter to pyro,
Yeah. And
which
like
was
I remember like the pyro also had like a busted weapon as well. It was like uh this flamethrower that would build up some meter. Once they activate it, it would like make all their flames do crits. And it was really busted as well. It was way too strong. Um and I tried playing again last year. This was like right when Overwatch came out, and I didn't have Overwatch, and I was like, I really want to play Overwatch, but since I can't, I'll play Team Fortress 2 instead. And like they changed the game drastically. Like now there's like a versus screen before the match starts. Like it has like all the players on one side and then all the players on the other side. It's like a fighting game. Like it even said versus in the center. And like the HUD is completely changed now, and you can't like just join a server and jump into a game. Like now you have to like queue, and then you play a game from start to end. Like you can't just jump into a game any longer. And the majority of the weapons are super nerfed now, to the point where you might as well just be playing with like the default vanilla weapons.
yeah,
um
the amount of nerfing they did to heavy, like his Tommy gun and stuff like that, and just like I don't know, man, they
it's
did
like it's like
a lot of nerfs.
the meme became so there's the video for the heavy. It's like, I am the heavy weapons guy, and these are my weapons. So like the meme has become, I am the heavy weapons guy, and these are my nerfed weapons. So I
Great.
mean, like I know this is supposed to be my top favorite games. I mean, I just spent so much time playing this game. I had so much fun playing with it. I looked forward to new maps coming out. It was like an event whenever like they would officially release a new map, which was always a map from the community that would basically be fine-tuned by Valve. um and it was always like this huge event. Like they would have a trailer video and like a new achievement and all sorts of stuff. And also, speaking of events, the Halloween events was just really fun too. They implemented boss fights into a game that was a multiplayer only game. So I mean,
Yeah, I really liked their events. They're really cool.
so I don't want to like end this with on a bad note of me just talking about like what went wrong with the game. But the reason why this is not my number one game is because of the fact that the game went wrong. Like the game just went downhill at a certain point, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth. So that's why it's not my number one game. But because of the fact that I had so much fun with it, I played hundreds of hours. I think I spent like maybe $5 on the game when before it went free to play. I bought it for like $5, and you know, I definitely spent more than that afterwards because I spent a little bit on microtransactions. Not a ton. I always like felt bad about buying microtransactions. So I'd probably spent like a total of maybe $10 or $15 total on the game. With that said, I got way more out of the game than what I spent for it. It
Yeah.
was just
I
just
got
really fun.
1,300 hours clocked in that game. I'd say about 1,300 was legitimate, so
Yeah,
it
just
was well worth it.
definitely. And it makes me a little upset that the game did go downhill. But I mean, at this point, the game is 11 years old now, 10 or 11 years old. And so, yeah, I mean, multiplayer games aren't going to last forever. So, yeah, it's definitely within my top five. Yeah. And Ali over here is the one who introduced me to the FUD community.
Yep. Um.
Moving on.
So yes, my number one game, and
Hold on. Before you mention your number one game,
okay.
do you have like honorable mentions that you
Oh,
want?
honorable mentions.
Yeah,
Um,
like without like going into detail, just like spit out some honorable mentions.
I really, hmm. Yeah, I don't have any listed. I mean, if someone else wants to go first, I didn't really think too much about it, to be honest.
Okay, Kevin, you have some honorable mentions you want to
Sure.
spit out?
Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. Um, Definitely the Elder Scrolls games like Oblivion and Morrowind, especially. Um, I think some of the Batman games too, like Arkham Asylum, I thought was really well done, and definitely Dragon Age Origins,
Okay.
and Alan Wake. That's another one that I wanted to mention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some honorable mentions on my list. I know this one's super recent, but that's mainly why it's on my honorable mentions. Shadow of Mordor. Um, the Super Monday Night Combat is on my honorable mentions. The Last of Us. Great game. Just didn't cut it for my top five. Donkey Kong Country for the SNES. Probably my favorite SNES game. And I'll even throw in Max Payne 2. Just because you mentioned Alan Wake. I'm like,
Yeah.
Max Payne was a good game.
Oh, also another couple games, Doom and the new Doom and Wolfenstein: The New Order, also like very, very excellent games.
Chex Quest on my list. Hashtag Chex Quest HT remake. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen.
So I'll just quickly go through mine. You mentioned, or Kevin mentioned Oblivion. That's I remember spending the night at your house, Staffa, and I was on the computer all night playing that game, and that game looked so good. It was awesome. Anyway, Counter Strike 1.6. I didn't play much of Source. I spent like 1,000 hours on CS 1.6. I was actually a part of like a clan and stuff like that. Did matches, so that was a lot of that. GTA San Andreas. Still think it's one of the best, if not the best, Grand Theft Auto. Like GTA 5 is great, but San Andreas is.
I forgot to mention GTA 5 in my honorable mentions.
Yeah, San Andreas, I think at the time was it just blew my mind. And the dialogue was
you can go to the barber shop and get more hair.
And all you had to do was follow the dang train, CJ. And then Tony Hawk Pro Skater Underground. I loved that game. That game was awesome. It is the best Tony Hawk game ever. Another quick honorable mention, probably low on the list, but Resident Evil Outbreak. I still think it's the best Resident Evil. A lot of people say Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil 7 because that sounds pretty awesome too. But Resident Evil Outbreak,
didn't that come out like around the same time as 4? Like maybe like I don't know.
It was like a year before or something like that, a year or two. It was very close together.
Like, I remember nobody played it.
I mean, it had an online community. That's the thing. It was an online game. Like you could play it single player, but it was meant to be played with other folks, and it was really cool. It did things that I did not see in any other game, just like being able to get infected online and stuff like that, and turn into a zombie. It was really cool. So anyway, those are my honorable mentions. And my number one.
Your number one. Drum roll. All right.
I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl.
Ooh.
Very nice. Like that game had a lot of technical issues. It was made by a small team in Ukraine, in fact. But it is like, seriously, when I beat that game, I felt like my life was changed. I felt like it impacted my life. And that sounds like a silly thing to say, but that game like just oozed so much atmosphere, and like it kind of pulled me into that world. So just like going through that story and going through that world, having like meeting all those people, just coming across all these different creatures and environments, and it just like I felt like I lived through that environment, it's there's these memes where it's like someone who plays video games, and it shows like this happy guy playing video games, and it's like that person playing video game, or that video game person playing Stalker, and it's just like this really worn and torn guy smoking cigarettes, like looking like he just came out of a war zone. And that's what it felt like playing Stalker. Just like the amount of stress that game had, and like influence that it had, it's unparalleled. And I have yet to have any other game get close to it.
I definitely need to play some more of that. I definitely have played. I think I got like several hours into it, but I don't think I ever finished it. But that is also, that's a very good choice.
It hasn't aged well, and that's the thing. It's even like the base game. There's a lot of bugs. The engine was, really rough. Some of the combat was kind of wonky, but people have made mods and stuff like that that'll kind of help complement or like fix those things, improve on the engine, even reintroduce aspects of the game that the developers originally pulled out because they didn't have enough time to include it. So it's a really great experience. Like I said, there's nothing else has rivaled it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tried playing it as well, but I can't remember what was the reason why I stopped playing it. Maybe I think I was at school at the time. Like I just know like while I was at in school, whenever I tried playing like some sort of a single player game, there was always like, you know, something that distracted me from the game, and then I stopped playing it. Like, Witcher 2. I think I was also in school, and then finals are coming up, so then I stopped playing Witcher 2. But I did try playing at one point. I had one of the mods installed, so it was playing all right. But I just got distracted from it. More important things came up.
Yeah.
But yeah, is that it, Ollie? Ready to
That's it.
move on? All
Best
right,
game.
Kevin. Let's
All
let's
right.
first of all, what were the years again, and then we'll do a drum roll.
All right. So this is between 2013 and 2017.
All right, drum roll.
Is Witcher 3, and it kind of works out perfectly because it's the last on my list, but it's also my favorite game of all time. I think CD Projekt Red has done a phenomenal job with creating a huge open world that actually feels alive and has a lot of variety and things to do. Before Witcher 3, Bethesda generally had like in my books, the crown of open world design. But I think Witcher 3 has definitely taken that award because, as I was mentioning, the amount of detail that they've put in all of the areas that you can go to, all of the cities and towns that you visit, all the characters and the story. They have done a mind-blowingly amazing job with that game. Like even some of the things like down to the side quest design, some of the side quests are so in depth and so detailed that they feel like they could be main quest stories themselves. I won't go into any spoilers in case anyone hasn't played it yet, but like there's at least one huge side quest that deals with a person that potentially could affect the main story itself as well. And that's the other thing too, is the decisions that you have to make in that game are never like they're not binary decisions. They're not good or evil. They're not going to have predictable outcomes. I mean, some might, some won't, but a lot of it is situational because of the time period that the Witcher games take place in. It's a very like a dark fantasy type of setting where things aren't always the happiest. Like there's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of corruption in government and in the royalty and the ruling. And then on top of that, you've got these monsters that are infesting the world. So this setting is not a very happy, lush place to live. So the situations that you're put in are also, they reflect that. And there's never going to be a decision that you make that you will always be necessarily happy with. Sometimes you just have to make a choice based on what you think is the best for that situation. And those consequences of your choices will either play out immediately, or you may not know what the consequences are until way later. And I think that's something that not very many games do, because I think they're trying to play it on the safe side. Like there's this idea that we need instant gratification, and the Witcher games definitely do not give you instant gratification.
They make you depressed.
They sometimes they'll make you depressed, but they make you work hard for your rewards. One thing that I also generally like is the leveling system is a lot slower than maybe people are used to, especially from the Elder Scrolls games, where you're leveling up almost like multiple times per playthrough. I mean, per session of play. But that doesn't happen in the Witcher games. So your choices also in terms of your character progression can be things that you have to plan out, because you don't get as many skill points to put into your abilities. So you kind of, like we were talking about with the Deus Ex segment, you have to really make the decision on what you really want to focus on. Granted, this game doesn't really have as much flexibility in character development or like your character progression as the Elder Scrolls games do, because you're playing a set character and he's got his own backstory, he's got his own personality, but you're kind of you're picking the play style that you want to tailor him for. So like, you can make him stronger with his weapons, or you can make him stronger with his magic abilities, or like using grenades and things like that, and crafting and all the alchemy stuff. So you kind of have some flexibility in those, but the choices you make will dictate how you approach certain situations. And I think any kind of game that makes you really think about how you want to approach an issue, I think that it just gets bonus points. But from a pure design standpoint, I think The Witcher 3 does, in my opinion, the best job when it comes to world building, and just environment design and character design and all of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with their next game, Cyberpunk 2077,
which will come out in 2077.
Yep.
I mean, that's not a title. That's a release date.
Look for a cryogenic lab somewhere and then just stay in stasis until that game gets released.
So like I like I mentioned before, you're talking about this, when we're talking about Stalker, I mentioned, tried playing a little bit of Witcher at 2, and then school happened, life happened. So like to me, like if I attempt to play Witcher 3, I'm never gonna play Witcher 2.
And that's fine.
Would you recommend me to try to go through Witcher 2 first, or like should I like move past that with my life and go to Witcher 3?
I always, whenever someone like hasn't played Witcher 2, I always definitely recommend that they play Witcher 2, but I know it's a lot of investment to put in for those games. I would say the only reason that you would really need to play Witcher 2 is to kind of have to understand where the characters are coming from, because there's no direct story connection between the three games, but there is a lot of carryover in terms of how the characters react to each other, and certain things in the world that have happened, and certain references back to the other games. So they don't necessarily have like you can still play the third game and understand what's happening without playing the first two games, but I don't think you'll have the same level of connection with the characters themselves and understanding of where they've come from. But I think the best way to do it would be to, if there's like a synopsis video that goes into some of the details of the characters and the things that have happened in the first and second games, I think that would be the best way to approach that. If you don't have the time or the ability to invest into the second game.
I don't.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfectly fine. Just definitely watch a synopsis so you kind of understand where the characters are coming from and how they've built their relationships with each other, because that's, I think, a key aspect of all the Witcher games is the character development.
I might try to pick up the game again. I fell off of it after I lost like gameplay because my save didn't back up after when my PS4 got stolen, so I didn't have it.
All right, ready to move on?
Sure.
Yes.
What's your favorite game, Staffa?
It's Portal 2.
I should have seen that one coming.
So yeah, Portal 2 is my favorite game of all time because I can't say anything bad about it. it's this is probably the only, well, Portal 1 and Portal 2 like are the only games ever that like throughout the entire time makes me feel like I am a smart person. Which like if I mean I don't feel
Yeah,
like that on a daily basis, so I need a video game to make me feel smart. No, I'm just kidding, but still like when I'm completing a level, like I genuinely feel a sense of accomplishment and that I feel like I'm clever. It's just a great feeling of satisfaction when I'm completing it. And um you know, if it was just the puzzles alone, it would be a great game. But it's not just the puzzles alone. It has very funny dialogue to go along with it. I mean, there's like three characters in the game, like Wheatley, GLaDOS, and Cave Johnson.
Mhm.
And like especially Cave Johnson, like the dialogue is golden. I mean, like Wheatley, I think I like Wheatley more than GLaDOS. But I think Cave Johnson just very hilarious. I mean, the game starts off with Wheatley coming in, you know, like saying you have a slight case of brain damage or something like that, and just you know, just really sets the tone with you know, how good the dialogue is. Just very funny. And Portal 2 is the only game that I have gone into the level editor and not just played around with it, but have made a couple of levels that I ended up, you know, publishing within their community. And that's how good the game is. That it inspired me to use their tools that they provided to make my own levels. And, you know, on top of that, with that said, the game basically has infinite content due to the community. Like they constantly have new levels that are being published by the community, and it looks like I might be lagging. Okay, not any longer. All right, but
No, you looked fine to me.
oh, okay. I was logging to me, or maybe it's just maybe my brain is inputting the visuals too slow because
Because those glasses.
yeah, this is these glasses. I'm so hyped. And look how crazy I look when I'm smiling and I'm wearing this. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, like the game basically has infinite content due to the community. They make it so easy to make new maps and publish the map. And there's a rating system, so that way you can curate the best stuff and only play stuff that's worth being played. Plus, they have the not only single player but the co-op game was really good, and there's also the co-op maps that you can get on the community, so you could keep playing with your friend. Is just a wonderful game. It's you know, I don't have anything negative to say about it. Like unlike Team Fortress 2, which went down a bad path, which I'm sad to see it go down that path. Like Portal 2, like just overall great. Like the only thing that like is kind of like not fleshed out about Portal 2 is the like Portal 2 also has like a hat system as well, similar to Team Fortress 2. And there was only like 2 hats I unlocked in the game, and I have like 3 because one of them is from Team Fortress 2. It's like
Yeah.
the crown for the demo man. I'm able to wear in Portal 2. So it seems like something that they they wanted to flesh out more,
Never
but
did.
didn't. But like that's not. It doesn't. The fact that it's not fleshed out doesn't hurt the game at all. It's just
I want to mention the co-op in that game was really good.
yes.
We played it together. You bought the game. You gave me, you had the PC version, right?
Yeah. So the way how we played this was when you buy the PS3 version of the game, it has a code for the Steam version. So
Yeah.
basically I had the PC version installed on my laptop, and you played on PS3. You know, I brought my laptop at the PS3 game to your place, and we just played it right there, and
It was really fun.
yeah.
The some of the challenges or what are the levels were interesting because you had the element of having to work with other person. And I remember one of the things, it was like one of the later levels, we couldn't figure it out, and then it turns out like we had to like collide midair to land on a platform or something like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I am so smart.
Exact. I am so smart. SMRT.
SMART.
So yeah, I mean, also, I mean, you also don't need to be in the same room to play the co-op. You know, I've played with my friend Adam plenty of times co-op, and not only can we use the voice chat, but there's also like a marker system that you can point at stuff, and the other player can see what you're pointing at, and like you can either point at something and say look here, like there's an eye icon, or like there's a portal icon, place a portal here. um so there's plenty of ways to communicate in that game, and it works out really well. And I I've said it on the podcast before, and I'll say it again. If Valve goes back and makes a sequel to one of their games, I want them to make Portal 3. I I'd much rather have a Portal 3 than a Half-Life 3.
Yeah. Well, seems like that would be more likely now anyway because of the whole thing that happened a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, totally love the game, and yeah, Portal. I mean, like Portal is also similar to Metal Gear with Solid, that you know it's that game inspired me to get into the game industry. Portal, like their puzzle design inspired me in to be a game designer. Like I love the fact that the puzzles are so well designed, and puzzles are fun. So that's why I started getting to puzzle designing, and um yeah, just Portal 2. That's it. But yeah, so listeners, you can still send us an email, podcast@avcontinues.com. Give us your top 5 games. But you know what else? Probably should have made it on my list. Maybe even as an honorable mention. Probably should have been my top 1, but I don't know. Some people might not say it's a game.
Is it Dreamhouse Staffa?
How did you know?
Oh man, because I could read your mind. That's why.
DreamHost, their web service that offer unlimited storage, unlimited bandwidth, user-friendly interface. They're also optimized to use content managers such as WordPress and many more features. All that just for $7.95 US a month. That's cheaper than a sandwich. Cheaper than Netflix.
What sandwich are you buying?
I don't know. The one with sprinkles that make me tick. Anyways, use the promo code out of continues or whatever way to set up you can get your free domain registration. Bam. So quick announcement. We could definitely use some more iTunes reviews, especially since it's our 6-year anniversary. Please leave an iTunes review. I was actually looking at the reviews last night, and who wants to guess when was the last review? Which year the last review was placed?
2015.
Going to guess sometime within the last 6 years.
Kevin, you're fired. 2014.
Oh, that was my second guess.
2014. Come on, fellas. We can use more iTunes reviews. It's the single most helpful thing you can do for the podcast because it helps place us on the Apple iTunes podcast charts. Helps us get exposure. And if you can't leave a review for whatever reason, you can still help us out by sharing the podcast on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever you want. Tell a friend, and if you don't like us, then tell an enemy. So yeah, let's get into the news. The news. Here it is.
The news. Are we just saying the news? Are you there?
Hello? I don't know what happened to Staffa.
Rest in peace, Staffa. I mean, his video's still showing.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so the news, guys.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing that Staffa has on here is the thing about PewDiePie. I actually really haven't I don't follow PewDiePie at all. Like, I don't really care for anything that he does. So I've not actually seen this news until recently, but yeah, I mean, it seems like it's been putting a lot of ripples out into the industry in regards to just all the issues that streamers have been having lately.
Yeah. I like you, I don't really care for PewDiePie either. I haven't really watched any of his things. I always found him a little obnoxious. But I think there's a lot of misplaced defense for him. People are saying, it's like, well, it was like, I've heard some of these excuses just kind of blow my mind. It's like, oh, he was in a heated gaming moment. It's like, first of all, this thing that you say, heated gaming moment, sounds really dumb. Is that like, I mean, is that a thing? Oh, this was a really heated gaming moment. So I'm gonna blurt out a racial slur. Like, the fact that that was the first thing he said was, just kind of, it kind of spoke for itself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then he corrected himself to say, instead of saying the N word, he said, like, he repeated the same phrase essentially, but then saying a-hole, so he basically used the word a-hole as synonymous for the N-word. It's like how like you're just digging yourself deeper at that point. So I don't know.
Hello.
Hi, Safa.
All right, I don't know what happened there because I was talking and I was asking you guys a question and neither of you guys replied. So, anyways,
No, you got disconnected. We were just like, I was like, it got really quiet, and I was just like, stop it. Are you there?
yeah,
um,
okay.
anyway,
Uh,
yeah, we started talking about PewDiePie.
yes.
So just to quickly recap what I mean, we both we don't really have much to say about PewDiePie. We don't watch him. I personally think he's always been kind of annoying, just the way he kind of yells in all of his videos. Um, but I was saying that there seems to be like misplaced defense for him. I'd call it ignorant at best. Um, just like people like, oh, it was like a heated gaming moment. It's like, well, why would he blurt out the N word then? And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
also the fact that he right after that he corrected himself, saying the word a hole to replace the N word. So he synonymized a hole with the N word. It's like you're digging yourself deeper in this. You guys agree, Kevin?
Time.
You just disconnect again?
Looks like whenever I'm screen sharing, I don't hear you guys any longer.
Oh, that's
So I'm not gonna screen share
just
any
don't
longer.
screen share.
Yeah, I'm
Don't
not
worry.
gonna screen share. Sorry about that. But yeah, like I mean, the fact that he casually like let it slip like that, you don't slip words that you don't regularly say. Like if I never say, I don't know what, insert any word. If I call people pinheads for whatever reason, or if I don't call people a pinhead, I'm not gonna like let that slip. It's like that makes no sense. So the fact that he let it slip means that does um he does say it. And what you were saying before about people defending him, about it being a heated moment. I mean, that's some BS right there. Like if it's a game, at no point was his life in danger. Like you're not gonna um you know there's no defense for saying that it's a heated moment.
Yeah, I mean, even if his life was in danger, like, just, I mean, why would you just say the N word unless you really had some sort of animosity towards that specific group that the racial word applies to, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
just,
also like you probably guys probably didn't hear me say it before because that's when the technical issue started, but like he dropped the N word with a hard R. It's not like with an A at the end where it's more like, what's up, homie? And
so,
like
so,
it was like a hard racist R at the end.
yeah, yeah. The I mean, there's like some scholar writing regarding the differences between the ER versus the A, and um, you know, like I think those are things that people should look at. The fact that he used the ER was is very troubling. Like even if he used the A, it's not gonna like doesn't mean he's allowed to, but still, it's like he just straight up said the ER version, which has always been associated with slavery and making blacks second class citizens and all sorts of just other racist stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like the people have been in defense of him. Like they're like, oh, check out the clip. He didn't mean it in a racial way. He corrected himself and said a hole at the end. It's like, no, that
That doesn't make him better. I think
yeah,
you missed that part. Like he basically synonymized a hole with the N word.
yeah. I mean, like, um, there should not be any defense for him. Like if you're defending this guy, for saying a racial slur, then you're giving you're giving racism a pass.
You need to check yourself before you
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly, and it's unacceptable. Like he came out with like this apology video, and like I didn't watch it. I read what he said, and it was like it just seemed like some BS that he knows he dug himself into a hole. So it's like, okay, I have to make an apology video. Like that's basically it. And the one of the co-founders of was it Campo Santo, the
yes
the
Firewatch.
Yes, Firewatch developer, has come out and said that they are filing DMCA takedown notices for all PewDiePie's videos that have Firewatch in it. Because like this guy is a closeted racist. We're sick and tired of this guy making money off of our games. And like they did say yes. We can't. We have to acknowledge that we did make some money off this guy as well because of his exposure. Showing an audience our game, and people have bought the game because they saw him play it, but they don't want to be associated with him. They don't want him to like. They're tired of him being like a millionaire making money off of like video games, and like just being a bad influence. Like they was Sean Veneman, who is the co-founder of Campo Santo. He said that he's going to contact other studios, like people bigger than them, and also like get behind no longer supporting him. And Sean also mentioned that it's not that they have any problem with streamers. They love streamers. They've handed out thousands of keys to streamers so that they can play the game and stream the game for them. But it's PewDiePie specifically that they have an issue because of the type of language and humor in quotation marks this guy has been presenting. Like he's also had in the past, he's did like anti-Semitic humor,
quote, jokes.
Yeah, like it's not even jokes, but yeah. No, I don't really have anything else to say. You have anything you want to add?
Nope, I think we've given him enough airtime.
All right. I'll edit that portion of the audio so it doesn't have all the technical issues. But anyways, let's move on. Talk about the NES Classic, the classic NES Classic, which aka the NES Mini. So Nintendo has come out and said that they will be bringing it back for a limited time. I think it said this year. But it says that they're gonna be bringing it back. It's gonna be the same thing and nothing different. No longer controller cords. Just the exact same thing as they had before. Same 30 games. And they realize people really want to get this, and also they've extended the amount of time that they'll be selling the SNES Classic, which it was only supposed to be for like this year. They said they're going to extend it to sometime in next year as well. It says like mid 2018. Like Reggie Fils-Aimé, who is the president of Nintendo of America, he he basically said that they want to make sure that everyone who wants one should be able to get one. And he urges people not to, go to eBay and spend hundreds of dollars. He said there's no reason for anyone to spend more than $80 on this item. So hopefully they stick with their word and that they do fulfill the numbers, because like NES Classic always instantly sold out. Like anytime it's available, it's always sold out instantly. So I don't know whether they didn't expect it to sell that well, or whatever the issue was. They realized that they need to have more available. So yeah, you guys want to add anything to that?
I think my time has passed for caring about those devices. I think the combination of the original screw-ups with the NES and then just the nonchalantness of the SNES Classic, just like it seemed like they just don't care really. And I don't want to have to like fight to get this item, so I'm not gonna try to get it.
Oh, I don't want to fight either, but I still want the SNES Classic. Like a lot of the games on there are games that I love and played in my childhood, but the cores need to be at least 2 times as long as what they say it's gonna be, or they say like 6 feet or something like that. It needs to be much longer. I need to be able to play it from my couch. But yeah, I'm so hyped for it. What about you, Kevin? Kevin don't care. He's a PC master race.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super interested in getting it, other than maybe to play, what was it, Star Fox 2 that they're releasing on the SNES.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's not something that I have high priority for. But I think Nintendo in general just overall needs to really improve their manufacturing and distribution, because they've always seemed to have issues with every platform that they release except for the 3DS and the Nintendo DS in general, in terms of keeping stock at stores and making sure that they're not always sold out. It's almost like they're creating this false sense of urgency to buy these things. And I understand that the NES Classic and the SNES Classic are kind of being seen as collector's items, so they want to keep them limited. But now that they're kind of going back to producing these products, there really is no limited numbers sense to this. So, I mean, I don't know if they're going to still continue with keeping manufacturing numbers low and perpetuating this idea that there's get one now before it's sold out, like it's a collector's item.
I was talking to a new hire at work who used to work at Disney Interactive. He's mentioning that like they've been laying off people because they're trying to, like, rather than make games themselves, license it out to like EA and whatever. But he mentioned Disney Infinity, and how they would have they would produce so many of the figurines, and a lot of them would sit on store shelves, and despite them selling really well, like the number sold is really good and impressive, they weren't happy with the fact that they would still have so many figurines on store shelves, because of the fact that they would produce more than what the demand is. With that said, Nintendo, the reason why Nintendo hasn't been producing that many of like the NES Classics might be the same reason that they were afraid that they would have so many just sitting on the store shelf. Obviously that isn't true. I mean, whether that is the reason why they did it or not, it's not the case that it would be sitting on the store shelves because everybody wants one. but that might have been the reason why that they were limiting the numbers, because they didn't want to produce more than what would sell. Ready to move on?
Sure.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about Sky. The sky is blue. What you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you? Anyways, so that game company who has made Journey and Flower and Flow, now they are they've revealed their new game, which is Sky, and it's gonna be for the Apple TV, iPhone, iPad, and yeah, I mean, like, before I even knew that this was that game company, I was watching the trailer. I was like, oh, this looks beautiful, and it reminds me a lot of Journey. And then, boom, it was that game company. I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
It looks very much like Journey.
Yeah, like with like the ponchos, or no, they got capes. Their capes are similar to the ponchos of Journey, but I mean, it's still, it looks very similar, but at the same time looks different because it's in the sky. You're flying around in the sky and above the clouds, and Journey like had a lot of sand and snow and underwater. Like, it didn't. I don't think there was like a sky portion of the game. Was there?
Yeah, at the end of the game.
The end of the game? Oh, I can't remember.
The very end of the game, you're like flying through the sky.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But yeah, still like this. Still though, I mean, I think it looks I mean, it does look very similar, but I think it looks different enough for it to like not be Journey 2. Maybe this is like the direction that they're gonna be going with like the future games, like, people with wavy clothes. But yeah, I mean, it's this game, while it's right now it's only announced for those Apple platforms. I believe it's limited. It's like a limited exclusivity. So I mean, expect this on PS4 next year.
Sometime.
Yeah, that's what I think. There's no way it's not gonna be on PS4. Pretty sure it will be. But yeah, I think it looks good. What do you guys think? And it's like it says Sky is a multiplayer social game where up to 8 players from around the world can come together to explore the world above the clouds. Players take control of the Children of the Light, and their goal is to bring the light where it is needed the most. This based on the short gameplay video is done through exploring and finding hidden areas. So I'm guessing that you're gonna get into like some dark areas that look dead and grim, and then you're gonna like illuminate it and make it colorful and wonderful, just like in Flower.
I was gonna say this is like Flower and Journey combined.
Yes, exactly.
100% original idea, guys.
Well, I mean, like, they know what they do best.
Yeah.
So why?
I like their stuff regardless.
Yeah. Why try to reinvent the wheel of that game company?
There you go.
I mean, like, you have some indie dev
knows what he likes, and he likes peacefulness and light.
I mean, like, some indie devs like to try a different thing for every single game, like Clay Entertainment, and others, they know what they do right, and they want to keep doing it.
I mean,
they don't want to take risks.
Anyway, moving on.
It looks good. Let's move on.
It looks good.
So there was a Nintendo what's it called? Nintendo
What's it called? Direct.
directly from me to you. And so some of the announcements that they had, one announcement was Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, and Doom will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. So a couple of very M-rated bloody games on Nintendo consoles. I mean, this isn't like the first time in recent years that they have like M-rated. Well, was Bayonetta 2 M-rated or was that T? Did they like tone down that game? I think they toned it down compared to the first Bayonetta.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Bayonetta 2. Let me look that up. Rated M. Yeah, okay, so but
Rated M for mature.
Yeah, but I think that is still not as gratuitous as the first one, because rather than her getting completely naked, like she still has like black underneath her clothes when her clothes comes off. So
Even better.
Yeah, she has black spandex underneath her hair clothes.
Ha cha cha.
Yep, ha cha cha. Anyways.
Moving on.
Anyways, so yeah, not much to say about Wolfenstein and Doom being released on Switch. I mean, more games on the Switch is good. More support on the Switch is good, considering that Wii U had like no support. And the fact that they have something for everybody, is also good. So it's good.
Yep, indeed.
All right. Let's also talk about some other Switch announcements. So an RPG by Square Enix exclusive to the Switch, currently called Project Octopath Traveler, and now has that is definitely a project name. So this is from the team that made Bravely Default, and there's a demo available right now that you can download on the Switch. Try it out. And like I watched some of the video, and it looks very weird with the art style, because on one hand they're trying to make it look like a classic SNES RPG like Final Fantasy 3, aka Final Fantasy 6.
They called the art style HD 2D.
Yeah, it's just really weird because like the sprites are 2D, but then the world is 3D. Yeah. So it makes it look like Paper Mario to me.
A little bit.
Like you have like
they always have the shadow going one direction, even though they've got like real-time lights. It's really weird.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was just looking at. I'm watching the video right now, and I really like the lighting of the environments. But I did notice that shadows, like even if you're standing right in front of a light, the shadow goes like as if the light's coming from when it goes back into the light. So it's not necessarily the most. But other than that, I think I like the art style a lot.
It looks good, yeah. It's an old style turn-based game.
It reminds me a lot of like I said, Final Fantasy 3, aka 6, because mainly because like one, they're trying to go for like that type of style for the sprites. Mm-hmm. Two, when they get into the battles, the sprites for the enemies are much larger than the sprites of the characters. And the characters have more animation than the enemies.
Yeah.
Well, like back in those old SNES games, the enemies didn't even have animation at all. Like they were just
flashed.
Or moved. like they would like kind of nudge forward if they attacked, but for the most part they were just stationary sprites, and the only sprites that had animation were the smaller sprites for the protagonists.
Heroes,
Yeah, the heroes. So on this one, like they're actually moving a little bit, like there's a like breathing animation or something like that, but they're just just chilling there, not really doing anything else. The gameplay reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy, and on top of all that, like you're playing as a female protagonist, and like she has like like some big, goofy, almost clown-esque bad guy going after her. So that reminded me of Final Fantasy 3. I mean, like he's not a clown, but he's like a few degrees away from being a clown. So that might as well make him Kefka. So I mean, that's why it reminded me of Final Fantasy 3. I'm not sure if they're using that as like inspiration or not. I think that they are.
It looks like they are, to be honest.
But I'm pretty sure this will be a good game due to it being the team that made Bravely Default. I mean that got really good reviews. Though, I've as I mentioned, I think the art style looks very weird with it basically looking like Paper Mario.
Yeah, I think it looks good though.
The sprites itself look good, but I don't like the combination of the 2D on top of the 3D.
I don't mind it.
I like it.
All right.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Your opinion is wrong, stuff. I'm just kidding.
Well, that's why you guys are the great Kali. You got you have to Kali it up on the 6-year anniversary. So, anyways, next article we have on here. Apparently, the internet has lost its mind due to this gameplay video that was released during the direct from me to you, because they're as they're explaining Super Mario Odyssey, and they're showing off like the picture taking feature, as well as the ability to change Mario's outfit, making it more like, I don't know, like Saints Row at this point, because you can dress him up as goofy as you want. The internet has lost its mind because at one point you see Mario wearing swimming trunks and his hat, and that's it. He's shirtless and
Mario nips.
Yep, Mario nipples. So I don't know what they expect. I mean, did they think Mario didn't have nipples? I mean,
no nipples, no belly button. He's not from this world.
Well, obviously he's not from this world, because like he's like a third the height of Pauline, who at one point was his girlfriend. So I don't know. Also, I find it funny that like in that video, they're like, we have original music for this game, that even the one that you're hearing right now, which was sung by Pauline herself. Okay, you don't want to give credit to the actual the actual
singer,
the actual singer. Instead, you're giving credit to the video game character. Good job, Nintendo. Thank you. But
moving on.
Yeah, Mario nipple. Oh, one person has pointed out that this is the first time that Mario has been shirtless. He was.
That's why there was the internet explosion.
Yeah, like it was in one of the Mario Luigi Superstar Saga. But yeah, the world has ended.
Yep. Moving on.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some Overwatch. So, Overwatch development has been slowed down due to need to address, quote, rising tide of toxicity, end quote. Like Jeff Kaplan, who is the lead designer of the team that works on Overwatch, basically said that in an update video that they're trying to work on implementing the reporting feature that's in the PC version into like consoles, and try to make sure that people play nice and play fair. And personally, like, I mean, I've never used that feature on PC. In fact, I don't even know how to access that feature. Never even tried.
Click on their name, click report.
Oh, okay, I never tried. But like, I feel like people's attitudes are the reason why I stopped playing the game, because I'm when I play online, most of the time it's by myself and I'm queuing up with whoever, and I'm
Yeah.
over here with my microphone trying to coordinate with the team, and either no one coordinates and no one talks back, or like
They just
I
like are toxic.
yeah, they start arguing. Why don't you switch? Well, I'm Lucio, dude. If you not want me to heal, we need a tank. You could switch. Yeah, if I switch, then we have no healer. Come on now.
Yeah. There are a lot of luckily on when I played on PS4, most of the time people don't chat, so there's not much toxicity there, but the report feature was needed. They did finally add it, as you mentioned, because people would just straight up throw games. They would like choose May and they would block the entrance. They would just do all sorts of dumb stuff. So they finally added that report feature because it wasn't on Xbox or PS4. It was only on PC.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way Blizzard saw it, was like, oh, it's their platform. They need to police it. And it's like, it's your game, that you have better access to see what the person did.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like, I got to the point where when I'm playing the game, it was very rare that I would get queued up with a team of people that wanted to work together as a team, and everyone used the mic, and it was fun because we're working together. And when that happens, it's great, but that happens so rarely that I feel like that's the reason why I stopped playing Overwatch.
I got dumped on a lot for when I switched to PC. People were getting mad at me because, like, I'm new to PC, but they thought I was a Smurf account because that's what a lot of people do. Smurf account is when someone creates a new account and they just kind of play from scratch, even though obviously their skill themselves don't reset, their character does. So it shows them with a low level. It's like, oh, you're a bad Smurf. It's like, maybe I'm not a Smurf. It's like I've got ranked up with these higher skilled players because, like, even though, like, I'm not perfect with everyone, I'm competent enough to win games and get, be good with certain heroes and stuff like that. But, like, people will still dump on you, like, oh, you're terrible, oh, or you're not healing enough. It's like, I'm not a main healer, that's why.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you're not Hanzo maining enough.
Anyway.
But yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about the other game that tried competing with Overwatch and failed. Not Battleborn, Lawbreakers. So Cliff Blazinski says, I have to keep this game alive. Sad crying face. So yeah, I mean, this is basically another article of Cliff Blazinski going on about how the game is dying, and like, as of writing of this article, only 181 people were playing it on Steam. Apparently the numbers are higher on the PS4 version of the game, but 181 is it's basically dead numbers on PC. Yep. And
I'm pretty sure No Man's Sky has more than 181 players.
Oh, you just burn, just twisted as well. Oh. But yeah, I mean, he goes on, talks about was it Warframe, how that's had a bad launch as well, but eventually regained some traction once they started adding more content and made the game better. And he wants to do the same thing. I don't think it's gonna work like that. You don't just like get more players by adding more content. If you have no players, no one knows you have more content. You got to have like more advertising. That's what Warframe did a lot of. I know it took advantage of like the summer sales. Like it had like some certain events where I think like you go in and get an achievement in the game, and that did something with the summer sale or whatever. So like they took advantage of a lot of the advertising and marketing on the Steam store, which helped them gain more traction. And I mean that's a key thing is marketing. You don't just add more content and then more people appear, because how the heck do they know that there's more content?
So, No Man's Sky has 3,358 players.
Oh.
Yep. Let me see
Man.
how many people are on Lawbreakers right now.
Right now, it's
I'm pulling up
184.
Wikipedia. What is it?
You said 184?
84, 18 minutes ago.
Oh, 84?
84.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow. So that's 100 less than this article.
oof.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, that's basically like Super Monday Night Combat numbers right there. No, it's more.
let's kill this topic like
Like Cliff Wisinski did with his
yeah.
for his first game for his new studio.
I think he just a poor genre to be in and released at a poor time.
Yeah. That's another thing. He mentioned that he released the game during Destiny season. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah.
Any listener feedback?
No, hold on. Let me open this thing up. No listener feedback. So if you want to write into the podcast, you can write into podcast@outofcontinues.com. Tell us about your favorite moment of Out of Continues within the past 6 years. Like that time I called Ali and Kevin the Great Khali.
Yep.
Yep, I remember that moment.
I remember that moment too.
All right, so let's wrap things up. You can, if you enjoy what you've been hearing, you can support us by liking us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, leave an iTunes review, subscribe to Google Play Music. You can contact us by email. That's podcast@outofcontinues.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/outofcontinues. All those things I just said, they're on the website. That's www.outofcontinues.com. You can give me a tweet. I am at SayedStafa. That's at SayedStafa. And Ali over here.
I'm at Phosphor112. That is PHOSPHOR112.
Kevin over here.
I am at KS Trehan. That's KSTREHAN.
Or you can tweet at Kevin by tweeting at Bethesda Softworks. And that will also get to Kevin because
that won't get to Kevin.
Nope, that will not get to me.
Because he reads it all. No, tweet at CD Projekt Red. And Kevin will definitely read that one. I'd like to thank my guest host for joining me today, Kevin.
Thank you, Stafa.
Ali.
Thank you.
And with that said, I'm your host, Stafa. Thank you, everybody, for making these 6 years happen. And I'd like to thank my biggest sponsor for the show, Stafa's Wallet. Thank you for making this happen, Stafa's Wallet.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click on the icons above my face to subscribe. Over here is last week's episode, and there is the episode before that. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.